I can't forget my ex-girlfriend. Since we were supposed to go on the honeymoon together, but he said he wanted to go alone. He said it clearly and plainly to me while we were facing each other. This was after my fiancé had suggested that we should register our marriage. We had planned to go on the honeymoon the next day, but he boldly declared that he would go alone. It is special, I understood and decided to go on the trip by myself. My fiancé had chosen his affair partner over me, and I no longer have any lingering feelings for him. And I have made the decision to never come back here again and to set out on the trip alone. My name is Sophia Harrington, and I am just an ordinary woman in my 20s working as a freelancer. I am currently engaged to my partner, Gary Manning, who I've been dating since college. Due to the current situation, we have decided not to have a wedding ceremony. Honestly, I wasn't particularly concerned about wedding dresses or ceremonies, and Gary didn't seem very interested either, so it wasn't a problem. We simply had a meeting with both families and bought the rings. All that was left was to submit our marriage registration on our upcoming anniversary in a few months. Currently, we are engaged and have moved into our new home. Although our marriage is not officially registered yet, we are already wearing our rings and living like a married couple. It was after some time of living this life that Gary suddenly suggested, "Hey, why don't we go on a trip during the holidays next month?" These holidays were exactly when we had planned to register our marriage. We had plans to go to the city office, but we hadn't thought much about anything else. "Do you mean like a honeymoon?" For patient, I asked, since we were not having a ceremony, we should at least go on a trip, right? I was surprised because I never expected Gary to suggest such a thing. When it came to celebrating anniversaries or handling marriage procedures, he always left everything to me. I had pretty much given up on that aspect, as we were both busy with work and Gary wasn't much into traveling. I had completely given up on the idea of a honeymoon. Great, I'm so happy. I want to go, I said with joy. Nations, and so our honeymoon was decided rather abruptly. After some discussion, we decided to choose a domestic location due to the suddenness of our parents. I was happy no matter where we went. And take to mere fact that Gary suggested we go on a trip together was already a source of happiness for me. "Pick any place you like," he said. He said, eventually leaving the decision up to me. At the time, I was so elated that I didn't mind at all. It was summer and hot, so I decided to go to Lake Tahoe. During a propulsion, I remembered Gary once saying while watching TV, I've never been to Lake Tahoe. Breets and Punagacticlation. It was a long time ago, so he probably doesn't remember. Still, hoping that Gary would be pleased, I planned various things. Looking back, that was probably the happiest time for me. I never imagined that such painful times would follow. When I had started preparing for the trip, Gary had a high school reunion to attend. We met in college, and I hardly knew any of Gary's friends from high school. Even though it was called a reunion, I wasn't exactly thrilled that he was going to a drinking party with people of the opposite gender. However, Gary cheerfully set off, saying, "I'm wanting to announce our marriage to everyone." I couldn't dampen his spirits as he was looking forward to it, so I sent him off in silence. I thought to myself, well, it's almost like we're newlyweds, and he wouldn't be out too late. The others must understand that we're about to register our marriage, so nothing out of the ordinary should happen. I tried not to worry too much about it. However, Gary didn't come back, even when it was time for the reunion to end. He said he would return after the first party. I called him several times because I was worried, but I couldn't get through. I just hoped he hadn't gone overboard. Despite my worries, Gary returned the next morning, saying sorry. It got more exciting than I thought. Gary, who woke up in the afternoon the next day, apologized and said, "I don't mind if he comes home late, but he could at least have called." That's what he always did. I got a little irritated. There were people of the opposite gender at the reunion. Coming home in the morning after such an event doesn't make me feel good, but I didn't want to say that out loud as I didn't want to be seen as clingy. I said to Gary, "Come on, be careful. We're practically newlyweds." I didn't elaborate further, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had changed since that day. Gary was acting strangely. Could this be what they call a woman's intuition? It's all just small inconsistencies, nothing definitive. But something was off. He was coming home a bit later than before and started taking his smartphone to the bathroom. Like in the bathroom and the dressing room, when I spoke to him, he often seemed distracted. These were small changes, but my instincts warned me that something was wrong. Gary felt noticeably different from before. I couldn't help but wonder if something had happened at the last reunion. However, I didn't have the courage to turn my suspicions into convictions. I was scared to sneak a peek at his phone or confront him about it on my own. If there was a problem, what should I do? We were about to get married, and the thought of something being wrong was frightening, preventing me from taking the next step. With these feelings, the day of our trip gradually approached. Gary was still distracted. He hardly listened to me these days. Hey, are you listening? Even when I asked, he would just say, sorry, I wasn't listening. I'm just tired from work, and he wouldn't engage with me. We hadn't had a proper conversation in days. When he came home, he would just go to sleep. What kind of married life is this? I wanted to talk more and spend time together. I was filled with anxiety. Could I really enjoy our honeymoon in such a state? The doubt dominated my mind. And finally, I crossed a line I shouldn't have. It was the day Gary came home drunk from a company drinking party. He fell asleep on the living room sofa. His smartphone fell from his hand with a clatter. I picked it up, thinking to place it on the table. At that moment, a notification caught my eye. I never intended to snoop, but I saw it by chance. The sender of the message was Rita, a woman. It was only for a moment, so I couldn't see everything, but I think it said something like, "Did you manage to fool your wife? But hurry to see you again." The moment I saw it, I felt all the blood drain from my body. Does she want to see him again? Did he deceive me? A bad feeling raced through my body. The vague sense of dread I've always felt seemed about to become a reality right before me. Despite thinking I shouldn't look, I couldn't resist. After making sure Gary was sound asleep, I grabbed his smartphone. I knew he never put a lock on his smartphone. I believed it was because he trusted me and had nothing to hide. Definitively, I checked the messages. What I saw was a string of text that made me want to look away. Today, Gary said he was going to a company drinking party, but it seems that was a lie. That was a lie. In reality, he had met with a woman named Rita. That way until just a moment ago, my fiancé had been alone with another woman. And he lied to me, saying it was a work-related drinking party. Aren't you worried about your wife getting suspicious since you're newlyweds? There's no worries. I told her it's a company drinking party. She's so oblivious, she'll never notice. You're a terrible husband. It seems that this exchange took place during the day, around the time he told me not to wait up for dinner because of a company party. I believed him, thinking it couldn't be helped if it was a company event. Going further back, the oldest message was from a month ago, from the day of that reunion. I was surprised how beautiful you've become when we met after so long. Breaking up was a mistake. If I had stayed with you, Gary, I would have been the one married to you. That's how their conversation started. It appears that this Rita is Gary's ex-girlfriend. They must have dated in high school. By the time he met me, they had already broken up. So their relationship should have ended during high school. They must have rekindled their relationship after meeting again at the reunion. We're practically newlyweds, with our marriage registration and honeymoon just around the corner. I can't forgive infidelity, especially at this time. I held back my anger and calmly continued to take screenshots of the phone's display. I want to see you already even though we just parted. Rita means more to me than my wife. I love you. Leave your wife and marry me. I can satisfy you more, can't I? While preserving such delusional exchanges as evidence, I let the tears fall freely. Was I the only one who thought we were happy? I intended to spend my life with this person, but was that just a fleeting dream? After taking all the photos, I quietly placed the smartphone back at my husband's side. No matter what, my mind was made up. I decided to let things take their course. Time passed, and finally, it was the night before our trip. Everything was ready for the trip. I asked Gary, "Have you finished packing?" But Gary just looked down and remained silent. What's wrong? As I kept asking, he seemed to make up his mind, and finally spoke up. I just can't do this. I can't go on a honeymoon with you, Sophia. He looked me straight in the eyes and continued. His expression was that of someone who had made peace with his decision, almost defiant. He boldly said this to me, to his fiancée, with whom he was supposed to go on a honeymoon the next day, and then register our marriage upon return. He can't forget his ex-girlfriend. He told me to go on the honeymoon alone. So, you're choosing her over me, your ex-girlfriend? I asked calmly. Gary seemed a bit unsettled by my composure, but again he declared clearly, "Yes. I'm not going on a trip with Sophia. Rita is what's important to me." He spoke as if he were intoxicated with himself, Trying to justify his infidelity, he fancies himself the protagonist of a tragic love story. Hearing this, I made my resolve even firmer. I understand. I'll go on the trip by myself then. With that, I stood up and quickly headed to the bedroom, and before closing the bedroom door, I said, I don't want to see your face. So go stay at that Raiders place tonight. Don't come back to this house until I'm gone on my trip. Then Gary said, all right, I won't come back home tonight. He left the house while on the phone. I'm sure he was calling that Mistress Rita. No doubt they will be enjoying themselves together. The other woman must be smirking in triumph. Such a cheating man, if she wants him, she can have him. I'm done wishing for him. Once alone in the house, I began preparing for my trip the next day. The following day, I was on an airplane heading to Lake Tahoe alone. I tore up and threw away the other ticket, which was in Gary's name as I left the house. Surely he won't return home until tonight. He must be at his mistress's house right now. If he were to contact me, it would be after he comes back. With these thoughts, I arrived in Lake Tahoe as evening fell and darkness began to set in. It took longer than I expected. At least for dinner, I'll enjoy some luxurious food, Lake Tahoe style. After a while, my phone rang. Of course it was Gary. He probably returned from his mistress's house. MC Omuli. Now that he's home and has figured out the situation, he called me. I can somewhat guess what it's about, but I guess I'll answer the phone. Hello. Hi. Where the hell are you now? He shouted at me with such volume that I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Your voice is so loud. I'm obviously in Lake Tahoe. I replied with a sigh. Why? You're the one who said to go on a honeymoon by myself, didn't you? Not that. Even over the phone, I could tell. Gary must be really panicking. His agitation came through in his voice. What are you thinking? Why is the house empty? Before I left for Lake Tahoe, I had everything in my life sorted out. Moving companies these days are efficient. Maybe they've adapted to the demand for situations like fleeing in the night. Apparently, they can do same-day moves. Well, I had done my research and had my eye on one for some time. I moved out, you know. Couldn't you tell? Why did you take all the furniture? Are you serious? We were living together in that house. We were living there together, but all the furniture was mine. What are you talking about? Most of the furniture and appliances we used in that house were ones I bought when I was living alone. There were a few new purchases, but I paid for all of those too. Gary said he would pay me back later, but he never did. So that furniture and those appliances are rightfully mine. Gary has no say in what I do with them. What do you mean by moving out? Why all of a sudden? To think that after cheating, he expected me to stay in that house forever. If so, that would be a remarkably foolish way of thinking. We'll need to buy new furniture. Why you're doing things on your own? It seems like Gary is complaining. Maybe it's time to twist the knife a bit more. I smile sweetly and say, oh, and about the house lease. It's only until the end of this month. You'll need to leave by then, okay? The month is almost over. There are only a few days left until the lease ends. Immigration. You ended the lease on your own? What the hell are you doing? Well, the lease is in my name. Even when we made the lease, Gary pushed all the trouble onto me. Name registrations are a hassle, so it's fine if it's all in your name, Sophia. Take care of everything. And with that, I made the contract under my name. The rent was supposed to be split at first, but lately, he hasn't been paying his share, leaving me to pay it all. That's true, but where am I supposed to live from next month? I don't know. Why don't you go back to your parents' house? No way. I can't possibly go back home, right? Gary's parents are very strict. They would never tolerate something like infidelity. They didn't even approve of our living together until we had a formal engagement. What would happen if such parents found out about the infidelity and the lease termination? I can't even imagine. I can easily imagine such a scenario. It would be bad if my parents found out. Just come back for now. Right to think he cheated and still expect such a convenient outcome. Does he think I will forgive him in return? There's no way I'm coming back. You chose your mistress over your fiancé, Sophia. Sooner or later, your parents will find out. That's not true. Gary hastily denies it. What does he mean by that's not true? I might have said, we're not going on a trip, but I never said we're not getting married. I still intend to marry you, Sophia. It's a problem if you just disappear. He's saying something outrageous. Despite openly acknowledging his affair, he still plans to go ahead with our marriage? That's impossible, right? There's no way we could get married after you've cheated. You said it yourself. You can't forget your ex. She's important to you. I did say that, but that's one thing. This is another. I can't forget Rita. She's important. But the one I'm going to marry is you, Sophia. What he's saying is completely chaotic. It seems like he wants me to accept his affair and still go through with the marriage. It's not so much that he's attached to me, it's more like he wants to avoid canceling the marriage to prevent his parents from finding out. His insolent attitude is infuriating. Sorry, but I absolutely refuse. I say that very clearly. I refuse to have a marriage that would be like living in hell. Such injustice should not be tolerated. Also, it seems like you really don't want your parents to find out, but it's too late. I've already sent all the evidence to them. They know everything by now. What did you say? I'd sent all the evidence to my in-laws just after getting off the plane. It's also been mailed, so it will reach them soon. What? What are you doing on your own? You are the one who did this, right? You chose your affair over our honeymoon. I never intended to marry such a person. I said that and hung up the phone. Gary continued to contact me persistently afterward, but I ignored all of it. I informed Gary's parents about the broken engagement and asked them not to contact me anymore, and they blocked their number. Looking back, I think it was good that we hadn't planned a wedding ceremony. And considering the cancellation fees, it would have been frightening. Fortunately, since we hadn't registered our marriage yet, there was no need for any particular procedures. The only thing I can think is that it's good that this came to light before the registration. If this incident had led Gary to have a change of heart upon our marriage, I even thought that for a moment. However, it was clear that his heart had completely turned away and a Rito would be impossible. That's why I decided to settle everything and leave Gary. Luckily, my work as a freelancer doesn't tie me down to a place. Being able to move freely is an advantage. But once my solo trip to Lake Tahoe is over, I plan to stay at my parents' home. I plan to live alone again once I'm settled. But naturally, it was impossible to find a new property in just a few days. For now, I'll just forget everything and enjoy Lake Tahoe. In the end, it seems that Gary got a good scolding from his parents. They seem to have liked me a lot and couldn't forgive him for cheating and betraying me. Gary apparently tried to introduce Rita, his new girlfriend, but of course, she was turned away at the door. There was no way she would be accepted, to the point that it has even been revealed to his parents that Gary was trying to go through with the marriage to me just to avoid their anger. Such indecisiveness, calling Rita his new fiancée, must have only aggravated his parents more. Gary was disowned and effectively kicked out of his family home. He lost his home and family. You could say it's a pitiful outcome. He should be thankful that I didn't claim compensation since we weren't married yet. I could have claimed it if I wanted to, but I knew he would have a hard enough life without that. Honestly, Gary's salary wasn't very good, probably a bit below average for his age. Compared to mine, it was about half. Of course, I kept silent because I didn't want to hurt Gary's pride by telling him that. That's why even when Gary didn't pay rent or contribute to living expenses, life went on. That was possible because of my earnings. But now what about Gary? Suddenly kicked out without any furniture or appliances. Starting a new life alone, renting a house, buying appliances. After doing all that, how much money will he have left? It seems he is now being pushed into a situation where he struggles with monthly expenses. He probably rented a place near his work, the same area as before. Rent there is expensive. If he continues his lifestyle without cooking for himself, his money will run out quickly. Moreover, since he can't rely on my earnings anymore, his income is less than half. His account balance will hit rock bottom quickly. He must have realized that he could afford dates in hotels before because of me. And can such a man without money keep his affair partner forever? As expected, Rita left Gary quickly. She seems to be getting along with a new man now. Gary has lost his fiancée, his parents' support, his home, and even his affair partner. Even if Gary regrets his actions, nothing will return. Even without me claiming compensation, he is forced to live a difficult life. Being disowned, he can't even rely on his family. He's truly in a hopeless situation. As for me, I'm living comfortably at my parents' house. I'm busy with work as usual, looking for a new place to live and daydreaming about a new life. When they heard about the broken engagement, my parents were shocked at first. But after they heard the details, they understood. They probably thought it was good that it happened before the registration. Our common friends were also very surprised. But for me, it has already become a story I can laugh about, so I have no intention of hiding it. Probably the rumors will spread, and Gary's social circle will shrink. He will likely become distant from his university friends as well. The solo trip to Lake Tahoe has made me addicted to traveling alone. Now I'm planning to go somewhere south next time. Having gone through the rare experience of breaking off an engagement, I can't stay down forever. Life is too precious. I have to enjoy it to the fullest. With that in mind, I continue to lead a fulfilling life, both in my work and private life.